Have you ever wondered if humans could see across vast distances just by using their minds? Or maybe even peek into the future? It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? Well, what if I told you the United States government spent millions of dollars in over 20 years trying to make it a reality? This is the bizarre and absolutely true story of Project Stargate. Our story begins in the heat of the Cold War. The US and the Soviet Union were locked in a tense standoff, and both sides were desperate for any advantage. Intelligence agencies were exploring everything, and I mean everything, to get a leg up. In the early 1970s, reports started trickling into the CIA that the Soviets were heavily investing in something called psychotronic research. They were supposedly training spies to use extrasensory perception, or ESP, to gather intelligence. Could they read minds? Could they influence events from afar? The CIA, not wanting to be left behind in a psi gap, decided they had to find out. And so, in 1972, a highly classified program was born at the Stanford Research Institute, or SRI, in California. Initially known by various codey names, like Project Skynet, it would eventually become famous as Project Stargate. The goal was simple, yet mind-boggling: to investigate and potentially weaponize psychic abilities. Specifically, something called remote viewing. So, what exactly is remote viewing? Imagine sitting in a closed room with no windows and no information about the outside world. Someone gives you a set of coordinates, just numbers, latitude and longitude. Your job is to close your eyes, focus your mind, and describe what's at that location. Is it a building? A natural landscape? Are there people there? That, in a nutshell, is remote viewing. The person doing the viewing, the remote viewer, is completely blind to the target. They have to rely solely on their intuition, or whatever psychic sense they might possess. The program was spearheaded by two brilliant physicists, Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff. They started recruiting and testing individuals who claimed to have psychic abilities. One of their earliest and most famous subjects was a man named Ingo Swann. Swann was a New York artist who was deeply involved in paranormal research. He wasn't just some guy off the street. He was confident, articulate, and seemed to possess an uncanny ability. In one of their first experiments, Targ and Puthoff asked Swann to describe a location they had randomly chosen from a list of targets around the San Francisco Bay Area. Swann, sitting in their lab, began to describe a ferry, a specific pier, and a building with a certain architectural style. When the team drove to the target location, they were stunned. Swann's descriptions were remarkably accurate. Another star recruit was a former police commissioner named Pat Price. Price had a knack for providing incredibly specific details. In one famous instance, he was asked to remote view a secret Soviet research facility at Sien. Price described cranes, multi-story buildings, and a giant sphere under construction. His detailed sketches were later compared to satellite imagery, and the correlation was, to put it mildly, unnerving. How could he know this? As the program gained momentum and some surprisingly accurate results, the military took a keen interest. The Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, eventually took over management in 1978. They saw the potential for a new, undetectable form of Imagine being able to see inside a hidden enemy bunker or track a terrorist without ever leaving your desk. The applications were endless. So, they started training their own people. Soldiers, intelligence officers, people with no prior psychic background, were brought in and taught the remote viewing protocols. Joseph McManigal, an Army intelligence officer, became one of the program's most celebrated viewers. Officially designated as Remote Viewer 001. McManigal participated in hundreds of operational missions. He was tasked with locating a downed Soviet bomber in Africa, finding a kidnapped US general in Italy, and even describing the interior of the Iranian embassy during the hostage crisis. According to McManigal and others involved, they had real successes. They claimed to have located Scud missile sites during the first Gulf War and helped find a missing spy plane. They even tried to look into the future, predicting technological developments and political events. One of the most famous stories involves a mission to find a man named Charles Horman, an American journalist who went missing in Chile after the 1973 coup. The remote viewers described the location where he was held and ultimately executed, details that were later corroborated by other sources. But here's where the story gets complicated. For every stunning success, there were plenty of misses. The data was often vague, ambiguous, and open to interpretation. A viewer might describe water and a tall structure, which could fit 1,000 different locations. The intelligence analysts who received these reports had the difficult job of trying to piece together a coherent picture from these often dreamlike fragments. It was like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing and the other half from a different box. This inconsistency was the program's biggest problem. Espionage requires reliable, actionable intelligence. You can't launch a military operation based on a psychic hunch that might be completely wrong. As the years went on, skepticism both inside and outside the government grew. Critics argued that the hits were just lucky guesses, statistical flukes, or the result of a psychological phenomenon known as confirmation bias, where you focus on the details that match and ignore the ones that don't. By the early 1990s, the Cold War was over, and the political climate in Washington had changed. The justification for such an unconventional and expensive program was wearing thin. In 1995, the CIA commissioned an independent review of Project Stargate. The review, conducted by the American Institutes for Research, came to a damning conclusion. They found that while some results were statistically significant and suggested something beyond mere chance was at play, the phenomenon was not reliable enough for intelligence gathering. They stated, the foregoing observations provide a compelling argument against continuation of the program. And just like that, after more than 2 decades and around $20 million, Project Stargate was terminated, and the files were open to the public, and the world got its first real glimpse into America's secret psychic spy program. So, what's the final verdict? Was Project Stargate a colossal waste of taxpayer money? Or did the government stumble upon a genuine human ability that we still don't understand? The debate rages on to this day. The official scientific consensus is that there is no convincing evidence for the existence of psychic phenomena like remote viewing. The results, they say, can be explained by other factors. But the people who were there, the scientists and the viewers themselves, tell a different story. They remain convinced that they witnessed something real. Ingo Swann, Joseph McMoneagle, and others went on to write books and give interviews, insisting that what they did was not a trick. They believe they tapped into a fundamental aspect of consciousness that science has yet to explain. Perhaps the most fascinating legacy of Project Stargate isn't whether it worked or not. It's the fact that it happened at all. It shows how, in the face of uncertainty and fear, even the most rational and powerful institutions are willing to explore the furthest fringes of the possible. They were willing to bet on the extraordinary. The story of Project Stargate is a rabbit hole of declassified documents, conflicting accounts, and tantalizing possibilities. It blurs the line between science and science fiction, between intelligence and intuition. It leaves us with a profound question. What are the true limits of the human mind? We may not have the answer yet, but the strange, true story of America's psychic spies proves that we will never stop asking. What do you think? Was it all a Cold War fantasy? Or did these remote viewers really see things they shouldn't have been able to see? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into the strange and unexplained, make sure to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.